Well, mine just turned to 6:30, so I'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, Mayor Kratzky, I am here. Moko,
Present.
Groko,
Present.
Kufal,
Present.
Padilla, he is absent tonight, and Eager.
Here.
Okay. For tonight's agenda, we're going to move 9H1 and 9H2 to the beginning of the department committee reports, since Justin and Mark need to leave. So we'll take care of those items right away. Any other changes need to be made?
No changes to the agenda.
Okay, so then I'll take a motion to approve the agenda for
So
tonight.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Eager, seconded by Moko. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any citizens here tonight to give comments or updates or concerns? Seeing none, we'll move on to council members. Any updates? And city staff.
Just to share, our late Ticknell committee is not going to be meeting tomorrow night, so they won't be meeting this month.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else? No. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda and take a motion to approve it when ready.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Eager, seconded by Kufal. Any discussion about the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A public hearing on the agenda at 7, so we'll come back to that. Communication requests and petitions, we just have some information from the ambulance, Ridgeview ambulance flyer, then senior center newsletter, Veterans Day program, and Meet Me Under the Mistletoe, which is coming up later this month. Department and committee action items and reports, we will start with 9H on page 59 and turn it over to our engineer, Justin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just by way of introduction, Justin Black, City Engineer. We have a couple of easements on the agenda tonight, and the first one I'd like to discuss is related to the CASA 21 project. And maybe Laura, if you could switch over to the screen. What I'm going to be sharing on my screen here is the easement document that is in your packet. It's a right-of-way plat, and there it is. So I'm going to take my mouse here and just kind of highlight an area. This parcel right here, it's kind of an orange shaded parcel. Again, this is related to the CASA 21 realignment project. So this is the easement document itself. I'm going to jump to an aerial photo just so we can kind of see where this is located in the real world, if you will. We're going to zoom in here on the east side of Gaylord, and I'm going to stop right there. So this is the current alignment of CASA 21, and as part of this future project, that alignment is going to shift, and it's going to come down what is 13th Street, the gravel roadway. As part of this project, the county road would then be realigned and tee into this new alignment, kind of where my hand is going back and forth here. So by doing that reconfiguration, it really clips the corner, if you will, on the city-owned property. So as this comes across here, there's a small sliver of property here that we need to provide an easement for. So I'll go back to the drawing here if I can find it. Let's see here. I've got too many drawings open. I'll maybe stay with the aerial photo for now since you've got the easement document in front of you. This is something that we knew was going to be part of the overall project, just the configuration and layout, but we're at a point in the project where we're actually going through the surveying and legal process to grant said easement for the county road project. So it's just another step in the process. I'd be happy to answer any questions for the council this evening about the easement or about the project itself. Right now we're looking at construction in 2026. But we're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. So with that, I'll turn it over for any questions.
I'll just add that this was an easement that was drafted by the county.
Okay. If no one has any questions, I guess we are looking for a motion to approve the road easement to Sibley County.
So moved.
We have a motion by Eker. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Groko. Any further question or discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to the next item.
All right. Again, Lori, if you would mind switching my screen. Okay, so this is the next easement, which is adjacent to a property owned by Michael Foods. And I know we have some representatives of Michael Foods in the audience this evening, so go ahead and jump in if there's any details that I missed. But again, this is the easement document that you see in the packet, and I believe there's even a copy in front of you. One more time, I'm going to go to the aerial photo and take a look at where is this situated in the real world, if you will. Here's the large Gaylord stormwater pond. These lines here are the highway, Highway 519. This is the railroad tracks. This is Railroad Avenue. The easement that's depicted in the drawing is right through the parking lot area here of the Michael Foods facility and continues south to the open ditch. This line here that shows up kind of as a dark line with green edges is the county ditch. It's a branch of County Ditch 55. Currently, there is a 48-inch diameter city storm sewer line that follows this alignment. It goes through the Michael Foods parking lot. Ultimately, it goes all the way up to the stormwater pond. It's the outlet pipe for the big stormwater pond. That's where all the water comes out of the pond and gets down to the county ditch. As part of a drainage improvement project that Michael Foods is proposing, they're looking to parallel that existing 48-inch pipe going through this corridor with a pipe of their own. And that pipe that they're installing will help to improve the drainage in and around their facility. We've met with them out on site and taken a look at it. It's a good project as far as what they're proposing to do to improve their drainage. Their drainage will be effectively disconnected from that 48-inch city-owned pipe. Again, referring back to the drawing that's in front of you, the easement is wide enough to encompass or accommodate both pipes. Their pipe will be about 12 feet off of the city-owned pipe, so there'll be enough separation there. They'll both outlet down into the ditch. We've also reviewed the construction plans that Michael Foods submitted to the city, and everything looks in order as far as how they're proposing to construct the project. They had started some work earlier in the year and damaged some of that pipe, but they've committed to repairing that pipe. We've also reviewed those repair plans, and again, they're satisfactory as far as repairing the city-owned pipe. So with that, would be happy to answer any questions about the project that they're proposing, but also the easement that we're looking at through that corridor. Again, that easement would accommodate the existing city-owned pipe, but also the pipe that they're proposing. And if there's anything else to add by anyone, by all means, please go ahead.
So on your table is an updated version of this easement. It includes the easement itself, the language, which is Mark worked with Michael Foods' attorney to draft, and then included in here also the drawing that Justin has pointed out, along with their construction plans. So that's all encompasses in this easement agreement. So, and again, this is the version then we'd be looking to adopt or approve.
So right now, does that property drains into the city line that's running through there?
It does. Right now, that entire parking lot drains into the city's 48-inch storm sewer line. And Michael Foods could elaborate more, but during the biggest rainfall events, water backs up from the ditch and actually backs up into their parking lot. So this would separate those two systems. And I believe they're also proposing a pump system that would help pump some water into that line. So there's a number of pieces to that puzzle, but it would be separating the two lines. Go ahead, if you would mind introducing yourself.
My name is Vineet Nair. I'm a project engineer with Michael Foods. So the pump that he was talking about, there's another tile piping that will be wrapping around the building, and it will be pumped. The water from that tile piping would pump into that new proposed pipe, which is, if you can see it, this line here. Sorry. Okay. This line here, this would be the tile wrapping around the building to get any water from that could go underneath the building that will be pumped into this new proposed line.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
I should mention just one small thing that we kind of discovered, or at least I discovered as we were going over the easement, that the city's easement that provides us our property rights to have our drainage line running from the pond under the road and then into the ditch. Have some question about whether some things need to be, I guess, buttoned up on that. Because I won't go into all the details, but I did have a discussion with Michael Foods' attorney, and they assured me that they'll work with us to fix the little nagging details with that. So with that in mind, I don't have any objection to moving forward with this easement now and shoring up our easement down the road with Michael's Foods.
Lori?
I can maybe answer that question. We're not increasing any of the drainage to the ditch. We're just adding a parallel pipe. So there's no increase in the watershed or the water going into the ditch, but we're adding a parallel piping system to convey that water to the ditch separate from the city. So that being said, since we're not adding any drainage or impervious surface, the parking lot footprint is staying the same. There's not a notification process for that. Be no different than a farmer adding drain tile to an existing farm field. They don't have to notify other landowners of the situation. But fair question.
Lori, could you switch it back?
Any other questions or discussion on this? As we need a motion to approve the stormwater drainage easement to MG Walbaum Company.
So moved.
We have a motion from Ekert. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kufal. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Returning to our agenda, we will pick up under Public Works Department 9C and have Ty come up to talk with us about a few items.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
The first thing I have is to take Alex Baird off his probationary status. Alex has been with the department for 6 months now, and he's been a really good asset to the department. Fits in well with everything, helps out when he's needed. Haven't got one complaint about him at all, so he's been a really good addition to the crew. So I'm just recommending that he be removed from probation.
I concur, yes, it was a very good hire for the city.
So is that a motion?
It is.
Second.
We have a motion by Moko, seconded by Eager to remove Alex from his probationary status. Any other question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
I apologize for taking so long.
That's all right.
We'll move on to the lead and copper notice next.
So this is more of just a informal FYI, just so you know. I'm sure you might have read it in the Reddit papers that all these towns have to do this. So we are required to do a lead line inventory status. And basically we have to ask every household in all of our construction drawings before the curb stop and after the curb stop, the service line, what it's made of. So the four categories that they give you is lead, galvanized requiring replacement, unknown, or non-lead. Those are the four options you have to choose from. In our list, so far we've gathered 6 lead notification letters, 19 galvanized letters, and the unknown material letters are 414. A lot of that reason is because most of the west side of town, we have no construction drawings for the water lines, water mains in there. So unless we see it and it's dug up, it's unknown. Even if we say we dig up Scott's line and from the main it's copper, well, that doesn't mean, we can assume that all the rest of them on that line are copper, but we can't say it because it's government, so. And the notification letter, I put those in your packet. There was another one of those that's drafted by the state and federal government and only allows us to modify certain things like our contact information, recommended flushing times, that kind of thing. It's a lot like the manganese letter we had 2 years ago. I'm sure it's gonna scare a ton of people, but, it's stuff that's been in the ground for 50 to 80 years, you know, so.
Were those 400, out of the 400 unknown, that, are we gonna have to send a letter? Because a lot of them, I just had the resident check a box that they send a picture, visually see copper coming up out of the floor.
Right. Well,
that the
a
next
lot of
step?
that unknown too, a lot of that is on our side. Because like I say, we don't know what's going from the main to the curb stop, because we don't have any drawings to confirm. So, that's a lot of it. But, yeah, so, does anybody have any questions over that? I know it's kind of it's one of those things, again, that it was coming, and, thankfully, I think there's probably some grant money and stuff for at least the residents to get their lines replaced for free, pretty much, from the state, I believe. And I know, I think on the city side, if we find them, I think we can probably find some grant money to remove those as well. Because I know if the city, or if the resident removes a lead line and it's lead on our side, we're required to replace it at the same time. We don't have a choice. So, it just is what it is, you know. But, yeah, the galvanized one is basically, the galvanized line says requiring replacements, because galvanized, it's kind of assumed that at one point you had some kind of a lead fitting or something hooked up to that galvanized line at one point in its history, so that's why they put galvanized requiring a replacement, so. So if you get any phone calls, just so you guys got a heads up that it's a required deal, and I put all my contact information down, so people are free to call and email me about questions about it, so.
Any questions or discussion about that? Okay, then we can move on to the inflow and infiltration project and our draft ordinance.
Like, are you gonna do this one, Steve?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
start it out. Stick around, though.
Okay, Mark is gonna be leaving here shortly. Mark was actually the one that worked on this quite a bit. We were able to come up with some sample ordinances from other cities and also the League of Minnesota Cities, as far as that would assist us with our sewer infiltration from basically just water, from groundwater, sump pump water, et cetera. And so going through this, if you had a chance to read it through, we actually have a pretty good ordinance in place already, because years ago when the city was going through addressing sump pump connections, at that time they addressed this, and back in 2014. And so this is just another layer of this. We're taking it another step further forward in trying to reduce the amount of just stormwater that's getting into the sanitary system. And so looking at this, I'm going to kind of go through some of this. There's some questions. There are some blanks here that are open here for discussion that we'd like to address. But basically, starting at subdivision 2, Mark just basically extended or expanded what's prohibited and where the sources of basically stormwater can come from. Moving down to subdivision 3, the disconnection, basically it's required that they have to disconnect. And if they don't, it's considered a violation of this ordinance or section. Subdivision 4, we have basically the inspection, and this is a key thing. You know, we talked about this after the cammering that we're going to be completing yet this year. Ty might be able to give us an update as far as where that is tonight. But basically, once that information and data is gathered, then we would be looking for the inspection. The inspection would likely be city staff who would be doing the inspection. But we also have language in here that was added for a plumber. Actually, it was existing. A licensed plumber could do the inspection and then certify it to the city. We would likely provide maybe some sort of form or something like that. But basically, that would be the two options. But it would be a requirement, and that's the key here, is that we're requiring that every property that, after it's been cameraed, we identify it, potentially having any stormwater going into the system, that it would definitely have to be inspected. So this is all properties. The question, I guess, tonight for us to discuss, or one of them is, in respect to when will this be completed? When will the inspections be completed? We want to keep this moving. That's your message and what you guys are all consenting to. So again, we want to complete the cammering before the end of this year. And then how long do we give for the inspections? So just some, I guess, thinking a little bit about, you know, if we want to have this completed over the winter months, taking into consideration if there's heavy snowfalls during the winter, the guys will be pretty busy with that potentially. So I'm just throwing out a date here of maybe the end of May that we could have those inspections completed. At this point in time, I'm not sure what that number is going to be, but there's a lot of coordination that goes on there as far as with the homeowners and so forth. So that's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to take some time. Granted, the inspection itself won't take a lot of time. It's just setting up the appointments and so forth. And it'll probably be more than one staff member that'll be working on that, probably Ty for sure. But I think we actually have to have two people go in there. There might be some, I don't think one person alone could go in. I think two people have to go in together. So it'll be two staff people that have to go in, so probably Alex and Ty. So primarily. The next one here is then on the same section down below there where it's highlighted in yellow. So if the licensed plumber provides a statement basically that they are in compliance, how many days can it be, basically how many days old can it be from submittal? I don't know, I arbitrarily just threw out 90 days. So within 90 days that they've inspected it, they would have to give that statement or notice to the city that, yep, they are in compliance. I think the idea is that we don't want it hanging out there for like a year or two or something like that. We want it to be somewhat recent, that they had been in the home and inspected it. Any thoughts, questions about that? Okay. Well, we can come back if there is. I'll move down then to...
But I'm wondering, do we have to do the sump pump inspections again? At all right now? I mean...
You could do them. I mean, they're going to be right there.
Okay.
I mean, this ordinance also states that if we're ever in a home, that we have the right to go ahead and inspect the sump pumps. Like, say, if our building inspector is in a home,
Right.
he could inspect it right away, because he's there. If he happens to be right there, he could go in and he can just check it, make sure.
I think most of the videos are gonna show outside problems, those
Yeah.
connections outside, not inside the house though.
Hopefully, yeah.
What are you thinking, Chad?
Just that the sump pump thing is kind of if we're there in the basement, but I'm just saying, I don't know that we need to be in the basement on a lot of this, perhaps.
So are you suggesting like the cammering will be enough, that we'll be able to address it?
Right, if you're seeing those connections outside to the house itself, I mean, I think that's where we're gonna find all these issues. And it won't be a lot of going in people's basements. It'll be, how do we figure out how to break that connection, back to the time window of we notify the homeowner, hey, you have a legal connection. You have 30 days or whatever to figure out what you want to do. Are you going to hire a contractor or what? Okay, they either elect to hire their own contractor, do it themselves, or they say no within 30 days or 45 days, whatever is decided here. And then there's got to be another period of time that, okay, that they have 90 days or 180 days minus winter or whatever, that they hire a contractor, otherwise the city does it, you know. I say we're getting wrapped up on the sump pump thing is its own thing, and, you know, the city went through and had all that inspected. Now, there might be a handful of people that illegally hook back up to the system, but I don't believe that that's not the, 99% of our problem is not that right now. We already disconnected all sump pumps except for the handful of permits that we got on file through the winter months and stuff. But I'm not saying it's a bad idea. It's been quite over a decade now to maybe do that. But the sump pump stuff is kind of separate from what we're looking at. I think, we're looking for major tiles hooked up to our sanitary sewer, perimeter foundation tiles, that sort of thing.
Okay. But just thinking here, I think we don't want to obviously remove the inspection language here, but we could maybe tweak that, because now, before it was, August 14th, 2014, that's obviously not necessary anymore, that we'd have to have that date in there. We could tweak that line or that first sentence, because that's obsolete at this point. And then we wouldn't have a date then either.
Right.
And I don't know about the licensed plumber. I mean, I guess we can put that in there, and then I guess I would leave that in there and just maybe put 90 days, from when they've been in the home. That it wouldn't be any older than that, their statement.
So that first line would be out, it would just be that, instead of putting a date on it, that they're subject to an inspection without
Yeah.
a date given.
Yep, that's a good way of putting it. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then going down to subdivision 6, I'll jump down to that. And then this is where it gets into the city. From time to time may televise its main sewer line. And then based on those findings, the city may issue written notice of compliance or non-compliance pursuant to this section. Any such notice which verifies compliance shall be valid for a period of. And I guess that's a question. First of all, do we want to put that in there? And if we do, what type of time period should it be, like 5 years or something like that, that it would be good? So if we find a property that's in compliance, how long is that good for?
Yeah, maybe we can just scratch that whole line, I
Yeah,
don't know.
because if you say 5 years, what's gonna happen at the end of the 5 years?
Again, then we're
You're gonna have
starting.
to go do it.
Are we
Yeah,
going
to
to
do
go
it
back and
again.
redo it, or
Yeah.
go
Yeah,
back and
and
check?
Yeah.
I don't think.
Okay, if that's a consensus, then I'll just take that out. The next paragraph talks about basically the city has the right to repair and maintain, and if needed, we can get onto the property. It may take an administrative search warrant, but we have that legal right to be able to do that. The next one, going down, subdivision 5, corrections. So basically, if a property is found to be not in compliance, what then? And so the big thing here is, so how long a period of time, once they've been found to be not in compliance, did they have to correct the situation? So we need to fill in the days there. So part of it is you may have winter, and there could have a bearing. And that's where I think this second part of that comes into play where, or as determined by the Public Works Director. So that gives us some freedom there to work with people, and I think that's good. But otherwise, say it's during the construction season, how long do we want to give them? 90 days, 120 days?
Right, I'd say in that ballpark right there.
Yeah, I wouldn't go any further than 120 days.
I guess that's what I was thinking too, is that we get too far out, people just have a tendency to put it off then.
And then with winter, you put it off so many months, and then winter comes, and then you're delaying it another 7, 8 months.
Right, and you could
So-
say something like 90 days, obviously, we can leave out winter, carve out
Yeah.
winter if we wanna, however we wanna write the language, but 90
I don't even think
days-
we'd have to do that. I think as long as we have the option with the Public Works Director for Ty to make that judgment call and say, yeah, okay, we'll give you a little bit more time because
Yeah.
it's winter time.
Perfect.
Can we pause this discussion and move to our public hearing, because it's 7 o'clock? Okay, so tonight we have a public hearing on ordinance number 369, an ordinance amending the charter of the city of Gaylord. So I will open to the public hearing at this time and turn it over to Steve to present us on the topic.
Okay, the Gaylord Charter Commission met earlier this year, back in September, and they meet annually, and their duty or role is to go through the charter and basically examine it, and if there's any suggestions as far as any changes, then they make a recommendation to the city council. And so there is, they met back in September again, and they have one recommendation, and this is in respect to Section 58, levy and collection of taxes. This particular section identifies when the city is supposed to submit, it doesn't come out and say it, but it's referring to the preliminary property tax levy, when we need to certify that to the county by. It states in here September 15th. That's what it currently states. And I say preliminary because that's generally when the preliminary levy is required to be submitted. The state statute, it has changed since the charter was completed. Basically, under law right now, cities actually have until September 30th to submit their general levy, preliminary levy to the county. This current section is absent, though, on identifying when we have to submit the final levy by. And so I added in that state statute. So what we're proposing here is to just reference the two statutes, and then as they're amended from time to time, we don't have to necessarily come back and make any adjustment to this in the future. So, so that's what's being proposed here, is that we just reference the statutes, and then we're set. Then we're basically going to be in compliance.
That makes perfect sense.
So that's the only change that's being proposed.
I thought we were gonna bring a crowd and nobody wants to talk about it tonight, though.
No. Any questions from council members about the change?
Joe is the chair of that commission, by the way.
Anything you want to add, Joe?
Like Chad said, nobody's gonna question that.
Okay, we don't have any public here to comment, so I'll take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion from Eker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kufal. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed. Okay, do we have anything else we need to talk about this? And right now, we'll jump back into our inflow and infiltration discussion.
Okay, so we're on page 56 of your packet, subdivision 5. So we just need to determine the number of days, once we give notice that they are not in compliance, how many days do they have to correct the situation?
Okay.
So 90, 120,
90.
90's good.
90? Okay, let's do 90.
and I think they would both of those would be 90 days then, seem to relate to each other.
Okay.
So basically what we're saying there is first one, we're saying they have 90 days to take care of it, and then we're gonna follow it up with a second inspection, so we would do that after the fact. I don't know, maybe we wanna say 100 days or do a little bit more than 90, I don't know. Or give ourselves a little room there, 120 days.
I mean, do we have to say a day on the second?
We don't have to, no, we don't, and maybe that's a good point. We don't wanna tie ourselves to a time frame that we have to do it by, especially if we're doing a lot of these.
Right. And we might
Okay.
be doing a lot of them initially.
We'll just simply say that a second inspection would be conducted.
Okay, perfect.
And then just to point out, this is in our current code, that there is a section here on waivers. So there might be unique circumstances where the council may be sympathetic that there might be some undue hardships there. It would be on the property owner to come in and explain what's unique in their situation. So that there is that opportunity, at least, you might have an opportunity to be a little bit flexible circumstances, depending on what they are. That's existing language in there right now. Mark just added a little bit on the bottom there as far as they'll be required to enter into an inflow and infiltration agreement with the city, which stipulates the terms and conditions of the approved waiver. So that's all he's proposing to add on there. And then lastly, this is in subdivision 7, surcharge and penalties. This is some of this is existing language, most of it is. But basically, before there was a fee, or I guess we can call it a fee, that was charged. That was for properties that were not in compliance. If they missed the deadlines for coming into compliance, they were charged $100 onto their sewer bill on a monthly basis until such time that they did come into compliance. And so the same thing here would apply for this situation. So that's it. That's basically our ordinance here. So this is just a draft of this evening. If acceptable, based on the discussion and the changes here, if you're comfortable, we would be looking at setting a public hearing, would be for our December 4th council meeting.
Okay.
What do we got? We got a special meeting, just a quick canvassing one next week?
Yes.
For planning and zoning. Then our second meeting this month, and then,
Yeah, we won't have time to publish this, to give the notice in the newspaper. We have to do 10 days, so we won't have enough time to get it in the paper to have it by our next meeting. So December 4th is our soonest that we can.
is that our last meeting in December?
Unless we have something else, but you've basically have made that decision.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Okay, so we need a motion to schedule a public hearing for 7 PM on December 4th, 2024, for the purpose of considering an amendment to City Code Section 54.171, prohibited discharges from sump pumps and other sources.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Groko. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kufal. Any further discussion?
Ty, maybe, I didn't, I was just gonna ask him, do you have any update on the cammering?
I haven't heard. I'll give him a call and ask.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we can move on to unfinished business. We have the second reading of ordinance number 368, an ordinance amending chapter 72 recreational and other vehicles. It's hard to spell out. So this is just our second reading of that amendment, so we need a motion to adopt ordinance number 368.
I'll make that motion.
We have a
Second.
Motion by Groko, seconded by Eker. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we need a motion to approve the summary of ordinance number 368 and its publication.
So move.
Motion from Kufal. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Groko. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. So now moving on to new business, 11A, we have ordinance number 369, an ordinance amending the charter of the city of Gaylord, which we just had our public hearing about. So we need a motion to adopt ordinance number 369, an ordinance amending the city of Gaylord charter, section 58, levy and collection of taxes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion from Groko.
Second.
Seconded by Eker. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll move on to 11B, rehiring Barb Krantz as our temporary library director, and I will turn that over to Steve.
Thank you. proposing, I've had conversations with Barb, and she has said from the beginning that she would be willing to assist with the training in of the new library director. Had a further discussion with her, and she is willing to also basically come in for a few hours once a week, just to kind of help with some of the administrative duties of the library, like checking the mail, coding any invoices, signing staff timesheets, and addressing any other staff issues that might need to be addressed. And so I've looked into this a little bit, and it seems like the best method would be, at least from administratively, is just to hire her back in a temporary capacity. Right now, her status is part-time, or it was until November 1st. So right now, she's not an employee of the city at this time. So the other alternative would be to do a contract with her for that. I think this would be a lot smoother. I like it because then she's still overseeing the library staff, and so she's basically operating the library at very, very minimum, but she would still be the librarian.
Oh, she's had 5 days off. Let's get her back on the
Yeah.
payroll.
That being said, we need a motion to hire Barb Krantz as temporary library director at pay grade 7, step 4.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Moko, seconded by Eker. Any further discussion or comments? I'll just say welcome back, Barb. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And just to report, we did get 3 applications for the position, and Scott and Lynn, it worked out for their schedules to participate on the interviewing committee, and so that we're going to be planning those for next week on Wednesday and Thursday afternoon is when we're going to be interviewing those candidates.
Okay, sounds good. My Thursday training I was supposed to be at got canceled, so if something comes up in your schedules, I can be available now.
We did get Pauline Marlinski also is going to participate in that too.
Yeah.
From the library board.
Yeah, I'm glad she's participating too. Okay, so next moving on to 11C, Police Chief and Public Works Director, updated job descriptions.
This is an item coming from the Personnel Committee. That's one of their goals this year, is to look at some of the job descriptions that haven't been reviewed for a few years. We have actually updated quite a few of them, mainly because of some of the changeover in staff, and some of them I think some things came up and we did address them. But there are still some out there that we do need to take a look at and update. And so these two here, the police chief and also the public works director, are the two that recently the committee has reviewed. Both Charlie and Ty did get a copy of these and had an opportunity to chime in and make any suggestions as far as changes or additions to the job descriptions. So these are the two. Wasn't planning on going into these in depth. I think some of the key things for you as a council is to be aware of are the minimum requirements that we're setting for both positions. And so if you're going to focus on an area, at least draw your attention to what's required for both of the positions. If you're familiar with job descriptions, they can be, I don't know, very generic in some respects. There's a lot of things that are just, you like to catch the summary. You don't catch every detail of everything that they do. There's usually something in here that says in like or like duties, something like that, and there is that language in here. We also put in here some of the ADA requirements that are required with positions. That too is becoming more common that you see that. And so, but the formatting, they're very similar.
I thought the council at one time, or we still do, have a minimum expectation of an average set hours per week, expectation level. I thought, like in your contract, I thought we had like 42 hours or something like that.
It's actually in the personnel policy. There's language that addresses that.
That's where it's covered?
Yeah.
So I mean, we just want an expectation at least, for 40 hours a week, plus or
Yeah,
minus.
it's for exempt employees.
That's where we stuck it, okay.
Yeah, it is in there, yes.
All right.
You probably remember, we went over that last year, I think it was.
Yeah, because initially it wasn't like the contract in the city administrator's contract back when, and then it must have got cleaned up years later. So that it's in the personnel policy then. So non-exempt.
For exempt
For
employees.
exempt employees.
Yep.
Okay. That's right.
I think it says typically 40, 45 hours a week.
That's fine. That's the only
Then we need a motion to approve the updated police chief and public works director job descriptions.
So moved.
We have a motion by Groko. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Kufal. Any discussion or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is 11D, resolution number 2024-33, certifying an unpaid invoice.
As you will recall or may, we do the utility certifications for lack of payments. We certify those quarterly, but back in 2021, the council adopted an ordinance that for any unpaid invoices, such as like building permits or other invoices, up until that point, we didn't have a methodology for certifying those, so now we do. And so there is a resolution 2024-33 in your packet. We just simply have one property that we're looking to certify for an unpaid invoice. And that's in your packet there on page 104 is that exact amount in that property ID. So in this case, these would be certified, this would be certified before the end of the year unless the payment is made. And then it would be for collection in 2025.
Need a motion to approve resolution number 2024-33, a resolution certifying an unpaid invoice for the city of Gaylord to be certified to Sibley County for collection with payable 2025 property taxes.
So move.
Motion from Kufal, seconded by Moko. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, anything else on the agenda? Then I will move to close the meeting,
Recess.
recess the meeting, sorry.
Recess for the closed meeting.
For a closed meeting, the meeting shall be closed pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C3 regarding the property legally described at Lot 2, Block 2, Pond Meadows Edition. So,
This is to consider a purchase offer of that property.
yeah, okay,
So we'll recess the meeting for right now.
yes. We are having